It's Saturday night,
The kids are in bed,
which means we did it. We survived another week.
so let's talk about it.
From our latest homebrew project,
To kids' crafting projects.
it's just talking life with two young kids and two dogs. Grab your favorite beverage, sit back,
Relax.
and see where the conversation takes us.
Sometimes we don't even know until we get there. This is the Craft Parenting Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the Craft Parenting Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Another week has flown by and it is once again Saturday. Time to record another episode. My name is Joe Ludwig and with me is my lovely wife and co-host, Caroline. How's it going, Caroline?
Pretty good, all things considered, I guess. So the kids ended up with a runny nose at some point after Lily's birthday party. Nothing too major, like just had to wipe their nose maybe twice a day. Somehow that translated to me getting a full-blown cold. I am not okay with that.
You typically get colds though.
I do. I normally get at least one cold a year, and they stick with me for like a week. So we're like 2 days into this. We're going to push through and it'll be okay.
So we have another great episode planned out for you today. Stephen and Hillary are back.
Yeah, we had to finish up that international travel thing. We could probably keep talking to them about international travel.
Probably.
Because we have a lot of talkative people in the group.
So we'll get to Stephen and Hillary shortly, but first let's talk about what we did this week. Caroline, what did we do this week?
So last weekend was Lily's birthday party. So on Saturday, we had a bunch of people over for her birthday. But then on Sunday, we had our neighbors over so they could enjoy the water slide in our backyard because we had so many people over for Lily's birthday party. We did not want to introduce non-family members into the mix because then it would have been really ridiculous with the amount of people in our backyard. So we just decided that we'll invite the neighbors over the next day so they can go enjoy the water slide that they were staring at all day on Saturday. So we grilled them some dinner. They brought over some watermelon that Lily devoured.
She really likes watermelon.
She does. They also brought over mac and cheese, which the kids enjoyed. And their three kids ran all around our swing set and water slide.
But Lily was very skittish when it came to the water slide.
Yeah, she kind of went back to not wanting to go down the slide at all. So we got her to go down a few times, but for the most part, she just played in the water. But she was fine doing that and just watching them run around. So we let her do her.
So then on Monday, I was off work for that entire week.
Yep, you took the whole week off work so you could spend it with Lily.
And Elliot. So Monday, I let your mom take a day off. I was on babysitting duty. So I hung out with the kids. We played and we did stuff. And both kids are mobile. This is a new development.
Much mobile, very active. For the most part, Elliot goes wherever Lily is. So they're almost in the same spot, but Lily runs away from wherever Elliot goes. So they're not always right next to each other.
He also likes to pull her hair and her dress.
Whatever toy she has in her hand.
And Lily likes to push him away and say, no!
Yeah, and then yoink whatever he is currently holding. Whatever is bringing him joy is now hers. He just has to deal with it. We're working on that one. So on Tuesday, I left work and then I picked everybody up and we went to Taft's Brewporium for Train Tuesday.
Taft Brewing Company, they have two locations. One is middle of downtown. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
The other is in, what do you call that? St. Bernard? Not quite St. Bernard.
It's not quite St. Bernard. It's not quite Spring
Grove,
Grove, but...
It's right by a train track.
Yeah.
So they have a gimmick where if there's a train on the train track closest to the brewery, you get like $1 off your beer.
While that train is going by the brewery. So we had hoped that there would be multiple trains that Lily could see. Unfortunately, we did not see any trains until we were leaving. But it was like as we were walking out the door, the train started to come by so Lily could really see it because we were outside. So that was good.
Yeah, she really likes the trains. We've gone there before on Fridays, and they come every 10 minutes, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's them getting out before the weekend.
Yeah, during the 7 o'clock hour or something. We went at the 6 o'clock hour, so that might have been.
Yeah, if we would have been able to stay a little bit later, we might have seen more, but the kids can only hang out for so long. Lily was already trying to eat her the color-free marker or whatever it is.
Yeah, it was a quick trip for sure. 1 beer each, pizza, in and out, boom.
But because we were 1 beer in and out, we got ice cream. So since Lily's birthday was the next day, we went to Grader's to celebrate her birthday. And so we could get ice cream.
That's right. And she met another little girl there, right?
Yeah, so there was another little girl who liked to talk to her. And there was an older woman who was grandmother to the little girl who was celebrating her birthday. So her birthday was the day before Lily's birthday. And she was having a big birthday celebration with her family.
So then Wednesday was Lily's second birthday officially.
Yep. And we made it a Lily day.
So we packed up the van. We got out pretty early. I was surprised.
We did. We dropped off Elliot at your mom's house. We said, bye, Elliot. Have fun. This is Lily day.
And we went to the zoo.
We did.
And we saw Fiona, the hippo.
From a distance. She wasn't in the water yet.
Yeah. We saw the lions and the painted dogs were running.
Oh, yeah. Lily liked that.
I haven't seen that before. They're usually nocturnal. I mean, well, they are nocturnal, so they're sleeping, right?
I don't know. I usually see them pretty active, but sometimes they're also really lazy.
Maybe that's it. Maybe they're just lazy.
They're like our dogs.
The lions are nocturnal, so they don't do much.
Yeah.
We tried to see the gorillas, but they were not there.
Yeah, the gorillas were all off exhibit, and
we rode the train.
Yes, we rode the train.
There's a little girl behind us, too. She was 3.
Yes. She was 3 and about the same size as Lily. And I was like, yay. And Lily got to ride the carousel with you. How was your first carousel experience in a while?
Well, we didn't get the animal that we wanted.
That's always the way it is.
I know. I think we rode an ostrich.
You did. She was pretty cute. I couldn't get her to wave at me, though. We got to see the manatees. They were all sleeping. And so they were sleeping at the bottom of the tank. And then they all floated up at the exact same time to take a breath. And then floated right back down, even though they were all sleeping.
We saw a turtle, right? Just randomly.
Yeah. We went through the reptile house, which was the first time that Lily has gone through the reptile house. She was not very impressed. So then after we left the reptile house, we saw the Galapagos Tortoise, which is huge and relatively young for the species. So there's a very good chance if Lily stays in Cincinnati and has children that she could see that same tortoise with her children.
Assuming the zoo doesn't trade it.
Yes, assuming it doesn't get traded to another zoo on a breeding recommendation. But so Lily was entertained by the turtle for a little while, and then she completely sprinted away and you had to go after her. While I was talking to one of the volunteers or keepers there.
And you got the gossip.
I got the good gossip. We were all in Fiona shirts because I'm like, this is what we're going to do because we're at the zoo. Y'all can deal. And she's like, oh, did you hear the news? Well, no, you haven't because I just heard it today. And they're keeping it on the down low. The zoo is getting a male hippo in on Monday. And I was like, oh.
This might be breaking news.
No, they've already posted it.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they posted it a day or 2 ago. She didn't know anything about him other than breeding recommendation for BB. So not Fiona's boyfriend. This is BB's boyfriend. And that she was surprised that the zoo hadn't announced anything yet. And I was like, well, they probably need him to quarantine when he gets here. And they want to make sure that everything kind of goes okay before they're like, hey, we're getting a new animal. Because unless you're specifically creating an exhibit for this specific breed of animal, you kind of usually keep these things on the down low. Because to make sure that you don't bring some disease from zoo to zoo, you quarantine the animal to keep it away from your animals to make sure it doesn't show any signs of sickness and is acting okay. And the animals kind of get to know each other before you throw them all in together. So his name is Tucker. Apparently Bruce was his public name when he was in San Francisco. I am very confused by that. So they said that he's been doing good. So they're consistently calling him Tucker. So there's no confusion, I guess, because they barely ever called him Bruce. I don't understand that at all. Now I feel like I need to go onto the San Francisco Zoo's page to learn more about this hippo. But he's starting to get along more with keepers. BB and Fiona don't appear to be stressed out at all with him being nearby. So maybe another baby hippo. I mean, Fiona will always be the little Sebastian of Cincinnati. So she's stuck here. But baby hippo again?
Baby hippo, then we can trade that baby out.
Yes. And get Fiona a boyfriend. So I got the down low on that. That was cool.
They had a random sprinkler out.
Yeah, they had a random sprinkler, so Lily enjoyed running through that like it was raining. She ran through that twice and had a blast.
I ran through it too.
I think I have video or photos of it. Oh, when we first got there, we got to go through Rue Valley, and we weren't able to enter the exhibit when we got there because there was a kangaroo literally at the door. Rue Valley is similar to like when you're going into a birdhouse where you have to go in through 2 doors and you have to leave through 2 doors because as soon as you enter in the exhibit, you are with the animals. So you're walking down this path while there are kangaroos hopping around next to you or laying in the shade because they're lazy. And they were very active Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I've never seen them that active.
Yeah, so a lot of them were hopping around. 2 of them started fighting and then chilled out. But when we got there, once we were finally able to get through the door, the Roo was just kind of hanging out in the middle of the pathway. So we just kind of stopped and we're like, hey, how's it going? Lily, look, it's a kangaroo. And he's just like eating leaves, hops closer to the stroller with Lily in it, eats some more leaves. And I'm like, do we need to move the stroller? Is this all good? It's all good, right?
Yeah, they literally did not care.
Nope.
That we were there. What is the difference between a kangaroo and a wallaby?
Size.
Are these technically wallabies?
No. The zoo does have wallabies, but they're not on exhibit.
Oh.
They're either making exhibit for them or I don't understand. Because like we had 2 baby wallabies, but they're not on exhibit. Like you can do behind the scenes stuff with them, but they're not actually on exhibit.
The only thing that we didn't do is we didn't see Lucille,
No, we did not see the bear cat.
which is a dumb name.
Because the other bear cat was Lucy, which is the short form of Lucille. Like, I get it. You're trying to name the bear cat with UC, like, in the actual name. I don't remember what the other name was. I want to say it was, like, Cecilia, but it wasn't Cecilia because Cecilia doesn't have a UC in it. But everybody was like, Lucille. And we're like, literally the last bear cat was named Lucy. Like, don't Bodie McBoatface this. But then the internet Bodie McBoatfaced it. So... I mean, I would totally vote for the name Bodie McBoatface if that was an option. So maybe the internet just shouldn't be in charge of naming things.
Well, this is what you do. You pick the choices. You don't let the internet just randomly pick the choices.
I'm still mad at whoever threw Lucille out into the fray because it shouldn't have been a thing.
But a bear cat is not a bear or a cat.
It's a marsupial.
Yeah.
But they're so cute. And they smell like popcorn, which is weird, but cool.
The Bearcats are the mascot for the University of Cincinnati, which is our alma mater.
Yeah. And I don't know why that's our mascot. I feel like I used to know that information at some point, though, but my brain pushed it out.
But we talk all about the zoo in our previous episode.
Yes, we do. And we go into more detail about Rue Valley.
Why?
These looks are great for visual medium that is podcasting.
All right, let's move on.
So Wednesday was all about Lily. We had canned Skyline for dinner because Lily loves her some Skyline. On Thursday, we hung out as a family unit.
Because you took off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yes, I took off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'm pretty sure we went to White Oak Coffee Thursday morning because I was like, we go into White Oak Coffee at least one morning while I am off work.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And then through snaps, we had discovered that Steven abandoned Hillary, like just straight up left her to go to Cedar Point for the day. And we're like, hey, Hillary, you want to do an adult night for dinner if we can convince the tenants to watch the kids? And she's like, yeah, or you could even bring the kids. Like, I don't care. Either way is great. So we checked out the new pho place that is near our house without the kids.
And pho is Vietnamese?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Vietnamese. It's so yummy, though.
It's like soup, but fuller.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really close and
Really yummy.
you haven't had it before.
I had not.
Because there's a place in Findlay Market. There was a place in Findlay Market, and then they expanded outside of Findlay Market.
Yeah. So a few years ago, everybody wanted to go on a hike, but I wasn't feeling well, so I stayed home. And after the hike, you guys all decided to go to lunch at the pho place downtown. And you came home, and your jacket just reeked of pho. But I didn't know what it was. But I was also like, I am not feeling well, and this smell is not helping. And then a few weeks later, Steven and Hillary made some in the crock pot. So I had that, and that was yummy. But this was my first, like, true experience. And it was good. I'm glad we went. We'll have to go again. Maybe that would help me kick this cold. We should go soon.
Yeah, I was just in the mood for something hot because the weather turned.
Yeah, it was a weird day.
The weather's turning now, too. I mean, I think it's typical mid-September, hot during the day, really cool during the night.
Yeah.
Which is part of the issue with the whole allergy cold thing.
Yeah, for like the first 2 days or a day and a half, like I wasn't sure if this was just super allergies or I had a cold. And then I discovered my body was like, why not both? Itchy eyes, a runny nose, congestion, sore throat. Like, we're just going to throw you all of the allergy symptoms and cold symptoms at the same time. You don't need to breathe. It's fine.
Not COVID, though.
Not COVID, correct. Definitely a cold. So on Friday, we got stuff together so we would be ready to go to the farm in the morning. And I, either on Friday or sometime during the week, I discovered the Disney Plus show Behind the Attraction. So I had already watched some behind the scenes, quote unquote, documentaries. I watched the Imagineering story. I swear there's one all about It's a Small World, but maybe that was just part of the Imagineering story. I got in a really big documentary kick on Disney Plus for a while.
The Imagineering story, that was like the first thing that we watched on Disney Plus.
The first documentary that we watched. It could have been like the first thing that I watched on Disney Plus, though, because I was not allowed to watch any of the Star Wars content until you were home. And when Disney Plus came out, I was on maternity leave with Lily.
You went back the week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and Disney Plus came out like mid-November.
Yeah.
No, I binge watched The Muppet Show. I'm still watching The Muppet Show, but I watched a lot of Muppet Show when Disney Plus first came out because it was one of the only things I was allowed to watch by myself on Disney Plus. Because we don't typically cheat on each other with our shows that we watch together. So we watch them together for the first time.
So we watched Behind the Attractions. They talked about the castles.
Yeah, they talked about the castles.
And all the parks and how they designed it.
Yep.
And he had like footage of Walt Disney and him talking about the castle and the park. He had a show called The Wonderful World of Disney,
which Larry remembers watching as a kid, like religiously, and how his uncle or someone in his family had purchased a color TV like a few days before The Wonderful World of Disney came up in color, and how it was the coolest thing ever.
Because it started in black and white and then it slowly went into color.
Yes. But he said for the first few episodes where they went into color, they flip-flopped back and forth between the black and white and the color, because at that time, all of the lights and stuff that you would need in order to make color film work would be too bright and create too much heat.
The studio lights.
Yeah, the studio lights. So the actors were not comfortable with doing it for extended periods of time, understandably, because you're sweating all your makeup off. So until they got the technology refined a little bit more, they were still flip-flopping back and forth between black and white and color. And I'm waiting for them to release The Wonderful World of Disney on Disney Plus.
I remember they had a Wonderful World of Disney growing up. Obviously wasn't the same. It was every Sunday.
I mean, it's basically just a giant advertisement for all things Disney. Most Disney things are an advertisement for all things Disney.
Well, this was in the 90s, and it was just like a movie. Like, they would produce movies for TV.
Yeah.
And they would release it every Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah. So we watched that show a lot. That was nice. I got to learn about Jungle Cruise, Space Mountain, the Haunted Mansion, and a bunch of other stuff.
Star Tours?
Yes, Star Tours was on there. You watched that episode with me first. That's how I got you in. That's like the third episode in the series, but it's the first episode that you watched, and it was good.
They don't have one for Galaxy's Edge yet.
No, but I'm sure they will eventually.
It's in the credits.
Yeah. I mean, I think they briefly talked about it in the Star Wars one, but not really a whole lot. Maybe they're doing a whole other thing about that. And they also haven't talked about Avatar and that whole land, but that might be a whole other thing.
Avatar?
Yes. That's a new area in Animal Kingdom.
Is it built?
Yes, it is built and it is open.
Interesting.
Yep. So that's what we did on Friday. And then on Saturday, we went to the family farm to spend the night there with Joe's family. So we had to load up the van, get enough stuff for 4 people and 2 dogs into the van.
So much stuff.
I mean, it was less stuff than we brought on vacation, but it was still a lot of stuff.
You were in charge of the food. Well, we were in charge of the food.
Yeah, we were in charge of all of the food for the weekend, and I might have overpacked food, but like nobody snacked. Like when we go out with our friends, everybody snacked.
That's surprising. That surprised me.
It was very surprising. We also cleared out the cupboards, which I have a blog post about, because in that we found mac and cheese boxes that expired in 2018, but we also found a recipe box that contained a recipe for Oma's chicken goulash, which is now my recipe. And maybe I'll make it on Monday since we're off, since it's Labor Day.
Also at the farm, we discovered that the caretaker out there, he has a baby cow.
Lily got to see the calf. She was very indifferent. She just thought it was a big dog. And she's like, I see dogs all the time.
But she grew interested when we fed him with the bottle.
Yeah, then she was kind of like, that looks like a really big bottle. Baby brother drinks out of those. This is kind of interesting. I'm going to go run over by the pond now and attempt to drown myself.
She was actually more interested in the cow poop.
She was. Fortunately, she didn't try to poke it. She just like walk up to it and be like, what's this? This ground looks weird. But then she did always want to run towards the pond, which, I mean, in her defense was what the dogs would do. They'd run to the pond to get a drink of water. You know what I just realized? The only water bowls that we had set out were metal water bowls. So the only water Clara could drink was from the pond. Because Clara is terrified of metal water bowls.
She's fine.
She made it through the weekend. She's okay. So the most adorable thing happened while we were at the farm. We're getting Lily better at saying everyone's names. So she can say mama, she can say dada, she can say Oma, she can say Opa. She can't say Jenna. She kind of says like Nena. She can kind of say Becky, but I think it comes out more like Eki. Yeah, and then
she can say Zoe really well.
Yeah, Zoe comes out really good, probably because we yell at Zoe a lot. And then Clara is Lar. It's so cute, but the best. So when Joe and myself started dating, Josh would like never talk to me. Josh is his younger brother. Would like never talk to me, would like never interact with me unless he was tipsy. Like I could always tell when he had had a few beers in a responsible setting because he'd just like start talking to me, and he would never do that any other time. So I just started to find ways to annoy him into talking to me so he could interact and he could like actually talk to a person for a change. And one of those ways was I gave him the nickname Joshy Washy Poo, which I haven't used for a long while. So we're going through and having Lily list off everybody's name, and we get to Josh, and I say, now say Joshy Washy Poo, to which Lily says in the most adorable toddler voice ever, Joshy Poo Poo. It was so cute.
It was pretty funny.
And so great.
And we just kept encouraging this behavior.
We did. No shame. Don't care. She'll grow out of it eventually. Hillary will yell at me about it later in a fun, friendly way. I mean, in our defense, we do say Joshy Washy Poo, so we are giving her the correct thing to say, but then we're laughing our butts off when she says Joshy Poo Poo. So we're definitely not helping the situation.
So now it is time for What's Bugging Caroline in Children's TV.
So for a change, I have praise. But it's Sesame Street, so I mean, that kind of makes sense. Sesame Street normally gets things right. I don't remember why exactly. I think it was because someone was trying to tell Lily that she could take a ladder to the moon or that she could hop to the moon. Like they were trying to give her some bogus way to get to the moon. And I said, hey, Joe, in September, we're going to watch Cookie Monster Thinks the Moon is a Cookie. Maybe they were trying to convince her that the moon was a cookie. I don't remember. You don't remember either. Something happened, decisions were made, and we stuck to them. So Cookie Monster thinks that the moon is a cookie, and he tells Gordon he's going to hop to the moon, he's going to take a ladder to the moon, he's going to fly to the moon, like he's going to find a way to get to the moon so he can eat it because it's a cookie. And Gordon's like, whoa, Cookie Monster. None of these things are going to work, and here's why. And also, the moon is not a cookie. Like, sorry, not sorry. Like, that's just what it is. And Cookie Monster is convinced that he's got to figure this one out. So he tries to take a rocket to the moon via WASA, which is the Worm, Air, and Space Association, which is how Slimy went to the moon a few seasons back. These are all old episodes that we're watching. And of course, Cookie Monster is too large to fit into the rocket, so that does not go well. But then Gordon is like, hey, Cookie Monster, meet my friend, Buzz freaking Aldrin, who has been on the moon. He can tell you all about the moon and how it's not a cookie. Because he asked Slimy, since Slimy has been to the moon, and Slimy's like, well, I didn't taste the moon, so I don't know. Which, I mean, is good. He isn't making assumptions.
He is a worm, though. Worms literally eat dirt.
But he also is in a spacesuit because it's space. Again, Sesame Street is using logic. I like this. So Buzz Aldrin is all like, hey, Cookie Monster, I hear you have some questions for me. And Cookie Monster's like, yeah, the moon is a cookie, right? And Buzz is like, yeah, Gordon told me you thought that, but like, you need to figure this one out for yourself. We need to use our critical thinking skills. So here, I have a piece of the moon that I can hand you. And it's like a big fake moon rock, because I'm like 99% sure that it was not in fact a real moon rock, because NASA would never let that happen, especially based on the size of the moon rock.
It's a Sesame Street rock.
It is a Sesame Street rock. So Cookie Monster is like, this doesn't feel like a cookie. Yum, yum. This doesn't taste like a cookie. And then like hands the rock back to Buzz. He's like, well, yeah, that's because the moon isn't a cookie. It's a giant rock. And Cookie Monster's like, this is really disappointing. Like, I really hope this is a cookie. And then Cookie Monster thinks for a bit, which is never good when Cookie Monster thinks for a bit, but we let him try.
He sings a depressing song first.
Oh, yeah, he does sing his depressing song about how he wishes the moon was a cookie, but it's probably good that the moon isn't a cookie, because if the moon was a cookie, he would eat the whole thing. So, like, he knows himself. That's really good. Self-awareness is key. And then he runs back to Buzz Aldrin, and he's like, wait, have you been anywhere else? Like, have you been to a star? Have you been to another planet? And Buzz is like, no, I've only been to the moon. I haven't been to any stars or planets. And Cookie Monster's like, but then what if those are cookies? I'm going to be an astronaut, so I can go to all of these different places to see whether or not they're cookies. And we're all like, you do you, Cookie Monster. And then we go into the rest of the Sesame Street episode. That's all their little segmenty things. So, like, it's not like Big Bird's episode where he's like, I'm gonna be a premier ballerina right off the bat. And nobody's like, let's have a reality check. Like, from the start, they're being very honest and open with Cookie Monster. And I like it. Realistic expectation. Hubby Boo Bear, I noticed you have a drinky drink, and it looks like my drinky drink. What are we drinky drinking? Or drinky drinking?
So we are drinking a Weihenstephaner, and this is the oldest brewery in the world. Their advertisements have nuns on them, because back in the day, the monks would, brew the beer. So I guess the joke is that the nuns would go to the monk house and drink the beer. I don't know. This is a German beer. It is delicious. It's 5.1% ABV. It is 21 IBU. And I really like the bottles because they are half-liter size bottles. And we use them for home brewing. And Kroger doesn't sell these. So I don't know where my brother gets them, but he does get them.
He goes to Jungle Gyms a lot.
Does he buy the singles?
I think he buys like 6-packs, but I don't know.
However he does it. Thank you, Josh, for doing it. I don't have time to go to Jungle Gyms.
I mean, it's close to my work, but it's an annoying drive from my work.
So the description that they have on their website is delicately aromatic, though strong in character. The Weihenstephan original Helles is unique and exceptional. Is that it? Flavor color. Delicate aromatic notes are not only perceptible in the aroma, but also in the flavor. Mild and drinkable with a light, fine, rounded hop flavor on the palate. This Helles is a golden straw color and represents the best of old Bavaria's native beverage of choice. So I thought that this beer would go well with the topic, which is international travel. So cheers to the weekend, and Lord help us in the week ahead, because starting tomorrow, we are going to have to do it all over again. More crazy adventures are ahead, and we will make sure to share them with you each week right here on the Craft Parenting Podcast. So now this is the moment that you've all been waiting for.
It is time for us to continue our conversation with Stephen and Hillary.
The climactic conclusion to the trilogy of our international episodes.
To potentially be added to later. Who knows? We like to talk.
I was going to say something. Well, I was going to say that we would conclude it 20 years later as a reboot.
6 seasons in a movie. 6 seasons in a movie.
No, you get canceled, and then 20 years later, you do a reboot. And then Steven gives you a good review because he reviews everything 5 stars.
20 stars out of 5. So we are going to pick up on our conversation wherever it was that we ended up leaving off in part 2 with Stephen and Hillary for the stunning conclusion.
So let's pack up the microphones and let's go talk to Stephen and Hillary.
We had some like quick tips that don't like really relate to anything, and I was thinking I could just read through those and then we can kind of get through our packing section, because I know that you guys have other things you'd like to talk about as well.
Yeah.
So we said be sure your medications are in their original container during travel. That wasn't a big deal on our trips, but I always try to make sure of that just so they don't get stopped and to get medication taken away. Other packing tips for light packers. You said something about a pillow earlier. I said don't waste space on travel pillow. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Airlines sometimes provide like a pillow, or like most things you can buy one, and I've never found them to be super comfortable, and I can't really sleep on a plane anyways, so I just think that they're kind of a waste. But to each their own. I said we like to buy the large bug spray and sunscreen. We talked about that. I said we like to roll things up. I have a thin hanging toiletry bag that works really well, especially in hostels. So it's really thin with all my toiletries in it, and I can fold it up into like a little roll, and then it'll just hang on the stall door, which is nice. The packing cubes, if you're taking multiple pairs of footwear, we talked about the heaviest pair going in your bag with stuff stuffed inside of it.
Heaviest pair on your feet.
Heaviest pair on your feet and stuff in your other shoes in the bag. Thank you, Stephen. And then I always bring a Velcro baseball hat. Stephen said I'm very pale, which is true, and I always have to make sure that I'm like protected from the sun. So having a Velcro baseball hat on the outside of my bag just conserves space. I said, don't be afraid to leave expensive jewelry at home. I always make sure I switch out my ring for something less expensive, so that way I don't feel like if I lose it, it's not that big a deal. The more comfy you are, the better vacation will be. That's kind of our motto. And we always opt for comfy. I always use comfy tights and leggings with cute flowy tops. So that's kind of been my go-to for what I wear. It's much easier for men because they get to just
shorts
bring
and
t-shirts and
t-shirt.
shorts,
All
and they don't have to
right.
pack a bra and everything else that women have to pack.
Yeah.
I said I wear a low-profile belt, and this has changed my life. I wear a low-profile belt. Some may call it a fanny pack with a zippered
It is
pocket.
a modern fanny pack.
A marsupial
It is a
pouch.
streamlined fanny pack. You can't see it under I have my like flowy top on, and it was a game changer. I did it in Europe, and now I always wear one. But I wear that low-profile belt with a zipper pocket to contain my phone. It's called a Gear Beast, not sponsored. And sometimes an undershirt that you can zip up important documents. So we'd have like an undershirt with a zipper that we could put like our passport and stuff in.
So we have something similar. I want to say it's called a travel belt, but I honestly don't remember what it's called anymore. Joe's is super old because his is from like 2006, but mine is more recent. It's similar. It's like a very slim, tight against your body fanny pack with an adjustable rubber strap. So you can clip it to yourself as you're getting dressed. So we used it to put like our passports in it. I think our driver's license might have been in it as well. So they were always against our body. And if there was some reason that we needed our passports, usually, unless if I was wearing a dress, it wouldn't be problematic to get to it. But then in addition, having small baggage locks was a big game changer for us because we didn't have to worry about anything. When we left for Europe, I made sure that I bought a purse that had 2 zippers that had holes in the zippers big enough that I could put a lock through. Because then when we're standing outside of Buckingham Palace waiting to watch the changing of the guard, Joe's backpack is locked where all of his important stuff is. My purse is locked where all of my important stuff is. Our phones are in our front pockets. And even though we've got all of these kids running around us, because kids are the ones that are more likely to be the pickpockets than necessarily the adults. Like, hey, let me just squeeze by you, mister. I don't have to worry about what any of them are doing because I know that my stuff is safe.
Yep.
And when we flew into London to then take a train to get to King's Cross, I think we took a tube to get to King's Cross. Joe was like, well, we're going to be on this for a while. Why don't you get out a book and you can read a book and I'll pay attention to the stops? And I'm like, okay, well, let me get out my keys. And I've got all my little different keys that I've engraved, which number matches up with which lock. And I unlock my bag, pull out my book, lock my bag, and then stash my keys. And this guy sitting across from me on the tube just kind of stares at me like, what in the HE double hockey sticks are you doing? And I'm like, this is my life right now. Like, if I lose this bag, I'm screwed.
I would 100% recommend getting a combination lock because I never want to have to keep track of little lock keys.
We bought 6 tiny suitcase locks. We have big combination locks on our checked
A
bags.
lot of locking.
Mm-hmm.
But the secret is like 6 different flavors of keys. So between our 6 locks, we only had 3 of them. So really, I only needed 3 keys and Joe only needed 3 keys. And I just said, based on what number is engraved on the side of the lock is what key it matches up to. So he had a set of keys, I had a set of keys, and it worked out well for us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, I think the other thing that we did that, not just with the locks, because we don't think we locked our stuff up that often because I was constantly just needing to get into stuff. I mean, I know this might be a simple thing to some people, but he put the backpack on the front of him. So, you can wear the backpack on your back or you can wear it like a pregnant lady.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would put it on the front of him, and I thought
When
that
we
was...
were in really busy places.
Yeah, like on trains
Yeah.
and stuff, he'd wear it on the front of him, which was helpful. And then when we were in the hostels at night, we would put our passports and stuff in our pillowcase and then sleep on it. And I thought that was helpful too.
Make sure that is a habit, though, because you do not want to leave the hostel and realize, oh, crap,
didn't.
I left everything in the pillow. Yeah, we
We
didn't
did fine,
because,
but-
we just knew that was a thing we did. But
Yeah. Well,
just make sure.
Joe gave us a heart attack when we were in London. We stopped at a bar like 2 blocks from our hotel, had some drinks, had brought our backpack with our whole itinerary and some of our tickets in it with us, and we were going over stuff. We played a few card games, drank some beers, and then left to go back to the hotel. And we get back to the hotel, and I'm like, where's that backpack?
Uh-oh.
We had left it at the bar.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, the bar hadn't closed yet, and nobody
no
had
one took
noticed
it.
it was there. Because also the really crazy thing was in London, like all of the bars closed down at 10 p.m.
Wow.
We're like, it's 10. We were going to stay out until like midnight. I guess we'll go home now.
I have a question. Somebody in your mom's group got pickpocketed and they took
Yeah.
their passports.
Yep.
Did they have copies, or what? They had to go to the embassy,
They
right?
had to go to the embassy. Yeah, they
Yeah,
didn't
that's
have...
a thing. I didn't know
yeah.
that's how you dealt with that situation.
Yep.
Yeah, if you have any kind of issues with your identification, your first thought should be U.S. Embassy.
Yep.
So whether that is you are talking to that authority figure, like take me to the U.S. Embassy and we'll deal with it there, like you have more rights at the U.S. Embassy than you necessarily do in that place where you're having an issue.
Yep.
And especially if any of your identification becomes lost, you want to get your butt to the embassy as soon as possible to try to get some kind of temporary identification and get all of that process started before it's like, oh, well, I lost my passport 5 days ago, but we're getting on a plane tomorrow. Maybe I should go to the embassy. Like, please don't be that person.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of got through all the things you do when you pack, and I think it's a big part of traveling internationally. So
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
like a variety of ways people do it, obviously, and so I think you can make either one work. But I love that packing light, and so
Yeah,
then you have to.
the big thing is make sure that based on how much or how little you are going to be traveling with your bags, do you care about what you're going to bring? So if
Mhm.
you're if you're planning on using lots of public transport, maybe you don't necessarily want to have a bag and a carry-on and a backpack. You just want a backpack and a carry-on.
So, fun adventures that happened while on vacation, and one that made us very, very happy. We only had our hiking backpacks. We were transitioning from Ireland to the UK. We were taking a ferry across, and we got a taxi to take us to the pier. Well, what we didn't realize is the taxi dropped us off at the start of the pier.
I literally thought we didn't get a taxi. I thought we walked from the hostel.
No, we got a taxi,
Okay.
and they dropped us off at the start of the pier, but where the ferry left from was at the literal farthest end of the pier, and
no.
we had to book it to get to where we needed to be in time for our ferry, and we got there with barely any time to spare, but had we been trying to lug rollers along, that would have been near impossible.
So, thing that I just remembered, handy dandy tool that is not a sponsor, and I don't even remember what it's called to necessarily like shout it out anyway. We have a bungee cord that straps to the handle of our checked bag and will then go around to the arm when you're actually rolling it.
Mhm.
It'll go around to that. So you can put one of your carry-on bags on top of your checked bag,
Mhm.
strap it on there and go. and not have to worry about what's happening to that carry-on because it is attached to your checked bag. And that really helped us out a lot when we were moving around. One of the problems that we ran into was we were supposed to fly into Edinburgh, and our travel agent had said it either wasn't going to add much to the cost, or she said getting from the Edinburgh airport to your hotel wasn't necessarily going to be easy. So I got you a car to get you from the airport to the hotel. And then when you're going to London, the train station is literally right outside your hotel. And it was, because we could see the train station from our room. So you'll just hop on the train station to get to London, and your hotel is a really short walk away from the train station where you're going to be dropped off. And then we had to get to the train station for the Channel Tunnel in London, which we should have left like 2 hours before we left. Yes, we took the Channel.
We did too. It's fun.
So much fun. Like, we should have planned like it was a plane. We had gotten so used to getting on and off of trains like King's Cross that we were like, oh, it's going to be easy peasy. No, we were like literally fighting to get through security so we could make our train.
I don't remember security for the Channel.
Yeah, I don't
Was
remember it being
It probably
that
wasn't
bad.
that light. It probably wasn't that bad because you didn't get there like half an hour before your train left.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
We made it on the train. It was fine. We had a car to take us from the Channel to our hotel and then back from our hotel to the airport because our travel agent was like, we're just going to do this. It's going to make life easier. And we're like, whatever. Yeah, we have not been to Paris before. Whatever is going to make our life easier, we will do that. But since we had planned on just having a driver take us to our hotel in Edinburgh, we'd been like, okay, it's fine. And then it's, oh no, we're landing in London. And now we have to get ourselves from Heathrow to King's Cross. And then at King's Cross, we had to figure out how to get a train pass. It was a very convoluted, like, running around King's Cross trying to figure out what we needed to do.
We had to get our picture taken in a photo booth.
Yeah, we had to get our picture taken in a photo booth to then get a train pass so we could turn our one-way trip from Edinburgh to London to a two-way trip.
It was ultimately cheaper to do it that way.
Yeah, because with the pass, we could turn it into a two-way trip. So we would just hop on the train to get to Edinburgh. And that's when we watched kids play Ticket to Ride and purchase the train from London to Edinburgh while on the train from London to Edinburgh. But yeah, making sure that you have ways to combine your things together like Transformers. But like if we were going to stay in the same
Baggage in
hotel
disguise.
the whole time, it wouldn't necessarily matter how many bags we brought because everything's just going to stay there and we're just going to take it back with us once.
Yeah.
But when you start adding in, because we went to 3 different cities. How many different cities did you guys go to?
We were in
4?
5.
Dublin.
Well, I guess actually more like, so
Cities? I mean, we were 4 different
so
countries.
in Ireland, we stayed in 3 different locations. Then we were one place in London, one place in Paris, Barcelona, and then Granada. So,
So 7 different cities.
yeah.
So that's 7 different unpack to pack to unpack to pack in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
With a very small amount of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is very conducive for that.
Yeah.
We had thought about doing something kind of similar, but with our 2-week time frame and the big things that we knew that we wanted to see, it wasn't necessarily going to be conducive for our trip.
Mm-hmm.
Did we stay in 7 hostels then?
Yeah.
We did. We
Yep.
stayed in different ones. That was just so neat. I mean, I can't get over how fun hostels were. I really enjoyed them. I don't know. I hope it's still a thing post-COVID times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing I'm interested to see how that whole situation changes when travel opens back up a little more.
I mean, there's always going to be broke college students, so.
This is very true.
I liked in London, that was probably our most packed room, right? Where it was like 12 people
Mhm.
and probably all the beds were pretty much taken, and
Yep.
we were in it was just like a smallish room, but all the bunk beds were like, it was 3 high bunk beds. So like,
Oh, wow.
like
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
like 2 bunk beds, it's like 1, 2, 3 high.
Sorry, that just reminded me of another little travel story. So we were on our Europe trip when Pokemon Go
Oh,
had
this is
just
funny.
come
Yeah.
out.
This is great, you guys. I
You
love this.
jerk.
That
And
was funny.
Hillary and I were both on T-Mobile, so we have our international data plans. We wake up one morning, pull up Pokemon Go, and I see the shadow of a Mr. Mime.
Which we've been looking for the entire trip because you can only get it in Europe.
Wasn't this also when T-Mobile was doing their stupid thing where anytime you had Pokemon Go open, your data was free?
I don't know.
Our data was fine anyways.
Yeah.
But this one you could only get this Pokemon. You could only get in Europe. Like when you were in Europe, it's the only time you could get it.
So I get Hillary up real quick, and I'm like, come on, let's go. So we both go out, and we each pick an opposite direction from our hostel to run in.
It looked hilarious. We like run out of the hostel, run in opposite directions from each other,
Come
and we
this
both
way, it's closer over here.
Yep.
Didn't we catch? And then I think I called you over to me. I was like,
Yeah.
"It's over here," and then like,
Yeah.
oh, and you could tell lots of people were playing it too. Not
It
at
was-
not that morning, but like
But just
around, you'd be like watching groups of people, and it's like, oh, they're all playing.
It
Pokemon
was
Go.
really funny. Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
awesome. I think we have sufficiently covered the packing
I hope
portion.
so.
So then and I already talked about a few things in the customs section too, so I can kind of leave it up to you guys whenever you're talking about customs.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add, Caroline or Stephen,
About
about customs?
I was about to start saying stuff.
Oh, go ahead then.
I mean, technically, Joe's done more international travel than I have, but most of his has been like group trips. So it's not like stuff that he's been able to like plan or control. It is, hey, we planned on stopping at our hotel for an hour after our plane landed. And no, we have to go meet the mayor to have lunch on a boat in the heat when we're all still in our travel clothes.
Oh. And then
Is
you
that- is
jump
that
in
a-
your Decent.
Decent summary?
I did not wear a lederhosen
didn't?
in Europe.
No,
No.
he was with the youth group, so it was their black and whites.
Oh.
A black vest and white shirt. No, but kind of piggybacking off that about group travel, I guess the negatives to it. We stayed with a lot of host families. Super grateful for that. Very nice people. We literally stayed in their house, and they fed us.
And gave you homemade schnapps for breakfast.
We attempted to talk at least. Super grateful. But they were also very proud of the city, so they enjoyed giving us walking tours. But they didn't let us like stop and see anything. So we were in Munich, like old Munich, where all the older buildings are.
München.
And the guy in German, the host person, he's like, that is the best bakery in Munich. And then we just walked away.
Oh,
That
I
was
know.
really
horrible.
disappointing.
Yeah, and when we saw a million churches, it was like a
Yes.
3-hour walking tour. It was
Oh wow. I will say really quick, if you said the best cinnamon roll I've ever had in my life
Ooh.
is in Iceland. Do you remember what that place
Reykjavik.
was called?
It was Bread House.
Bread House in Reykjavik.
They had like 3 or 4 locations there, but oh man.
When I say the best cinnamon roll in my life, you guys, like
And it was
nothing will
just
match up.
powdered sugar. They didn't put icing on it, but so good. Delicious.
So like if you're on a walking tour in Reykjavik and someone says that's the best bakery in Iceland, you stop there and you eat a dang cinnamon roll.
Yeah, and
no, you can't, because then you'll
You'll be rude.
you'll dishonor your host.
well, because the thing about like his group trips too is the Cincinnati group gets to go like every 5 or 6 years, but it's every year there's a different city that sends their kids. So it's like if you screw this up, you're not screwing it up for you, you're potentially screwing it up for everyone.
Yeah.
Because these host families might not want to host the kids the next year because y'all acted like a bunch of drunk idiots.
In Munich, there wasn't enough families for them to host us, so we did stay in I guess it was like not like a traditional hostel. I guess it was more like a hotel.
Well, it just made me think of when you said like you were a kid, right? So how old were you when you stayed in Germany?
So the story that I just did, it was 2013. So I just graduated college.
Okay, were you younger? You had ones when you were younger too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I went in 2006. It was a very similar trip. I was a sophomore, about to be a junior
Okay.
In high
in
school.
high school.
And the reason I asked that is because when we were talking about hostels, there's hostels called youth hostels,
Mhm.
which when Stephen went with his mom, they backpacked across Europe and explained the youth hostels because I thought that was fascinating.
So youth hostels have actual age requirements to them, and as long as one person in your party meets those age requirements, now this was 15 years ago, so I don't know if this has really changed at all. But the youth hostels, I think like the age limit was like 21 maybe, might have even
Like,
been
you had to
less
be
than
21 and under to
yeah,
stay? Oh.
but because I was in my teens at that point, we were able to stay there, my mom and everything, because I was under that. And I don't know, my mom was doing all the trip planning at that point. So I don't know if there was, a special benefit to it being a youth hostel, like if it was extra cheap or anything because of that, or if it was just a different designation for it.
Well,
It
and a
might
different-
have been you were less likely to have a creepy old guy there.
Right. I
which
was
is
like,
a big
like
thing.
a better crowd. Like, you can have your children there with you and you're not uncomfortable because you're with other families and their
Yeah.
children. Like,
It's not
that's-
like not that this is something that ever happened to you guys, but you don't necessarily have the guy that likes to talk with his leg up on your bed wearing
Oh.
absolutely nothing. Like, hey, I'm just gonna shoot the breeze with you.
I literally thought you were gonna tell
uh,
the bright green underwear guy story. There was a guy in our hostel that was like really hard to avoid because he had like bright green underwear, and I
Oh.
was always like, "Oh, don't look over there." He's in just his bright green underwear again. Like,
Yeah, modesty in Europe is definitely a little bit different
Yes.
than in the U.S.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we may have mentioned it a little bit on the previous part of this talk. Customs are very different in many countries.
And you're talking about like cultural.
Yeah,
Cultural,
traditions.
traditions
Yeah.
and just the way, just the way things are. Just be flexible, go with the way things are,
try
don't
not to talk too loudly.
yes.
Don't be those Americans.
Yeah.
Try to not wear baseball hats and backpacks everywhere you go.
Hey,
Yeah.
hey,
I totally did
Joe
that.
totally did that though.
I have to do that because my eyes are very sensitive
Yes.
to the sun, and we're carrying our hiking backpacks, so we totally look like tourists,
Yeah.
backpackers.
But there's plenty of non-Americans that are backpacking through Europe as
True.
well. So that's
For months
fine.
at a time. They kept telling us our trip was so short.
Yeah.
Try not to represent the worst of people when you're traveling abroad.
Yeah. So getting through customs as regards to security, typically if you're flying, I don't even, maybe on the train they had us do this too when we went through the channel. You could potentially be given a little slip of paper before you land that says, where are you staying? What are you bringing with you?
Yep.
Do you have any of these hazardous things with you?
Good old customs forms.
Yep. And they're very tiny. And when you're staying in multiple places, it's very hard to fill them out because, like it worked out okay for us because I had our itinerary with us. So I knew where we were staying and what to put down. But
Typically, I will say most of those, if you're moving from place to place, all you really need to put is the first place you're staying
yeah,
at.
what they really care about most is the first place that you're staying at.
Which was really awkward for us when we landed in Dublin because we were like, we don't know where we're staying
gonna
yet.
stay.
We're driving this direction,
That
but I
was-
can't really tell you where we're staying yet.
That was really awkward. I was like, we're about to get stopped.
Yeah.
I forget how we got through that now, but it definitely did cause a bit of an extra conversation.
Yeah. And then just be prepared to answer the questions.
Yep.
Where are you going? Why are you here? Business or pleasure? What are you planning on doing while you're here? It could be that they're only going to stamp your passport, look at you, and then just tell you to move on. It could be that they're going to take you into a 5 to 10 minute conversation just because they're trying to suss out your story. You never really know what's going to happen.
Yep.
My favorite border story, though, is it might have been the middle of the freaking night too. We drove up to Canada with the Donauschwaben dance group. So on the way there, it was just like, okay, I think like we might have had to like hand our passports out the door, but we stayed on the bus and then we left. Like we didn't have any issues getting into Canada. But on the way back, we had to get out of the bus and talk to U.S. border agents. Well, there was this poor boy who was there because he wanted to spend time with his girlfriend who was in the dance group. I don't know how they managed to weasel his way like onto the bus. Like I think like his mom came with him too, but they probably like paid extra to be there with us and like they paid for their own hotel room. This poor boy is like the third person in line and he gets called up and he gets like the biggest, baddest border agent there with like the super deep voice. What is your name? And then his like mom answers behind him. What were you doing in Canada? And he just like stares at the guy, and his mom answers from behind him, like she's in line waiting to talk to someone else. And he's like, "What's wrong? Can't you speak?" And it's like literally any other person would have been able to answer those questions in 2 seconds and been able to deal with him no problem.
Oh, man.
Because they had all hopped at least one border previously.
Yeah.
But this poor kid, I was like, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry."
I can do one better for border.
Oh, you've got the
stories.
best border story.
In 2006, the first time I went to Europe with the group, when we were traveling literally on
Was
a
it
bus.
a choir group?
We were dancing.
Oh, a
we
dance
did,
group.
Yeah, well, we sung too.
Oh.
We did literally, it was a
They
3-hour
did
show.
3-hour show.
We went to Germany, Austria, and Hungary that trip. And Hungary was not part of the EU back then. So they had their own border, they had their own currency. The chaperones really made a big deal about the border in Hungary. So finally we were traveling from Austria to Hungary, and the chaperone stood up in front of the bus and said, "Okay, everyone has to be quiet, look forward, have your passports out. Don't be surprised if they have really big guns. They might question you, they might make us get off the bus. They might search everything, like take the luggage off." They made a really big deal about it.
This could be real intense, y'all.
Yeah. So everyone was like, "Oh, okay." So we were all, did what we were told. We had our passports out. We looked forward. They told us not to smile or anything. Don't make no pictures. Oh my God, don't take a picture or they'll come and get you.
Jeez.
And that no picture thing is the case for any sort of customs or border control as well.
Yeah. But this was back in the day when I literally brought film.
Yeah.
I brought like disposable cameras, I think.
That's fantastic.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
2006. So we finally get to the border, and our bus driver opens the door, and he speaks in German. We have Americans, we're traveling, whatever. And the border agent's like, "Americans? Coca-Cola?" Because I guess he didn't really, he was Hungarian. So, and Hungarian and German are different languages. So he's like, "Americans, Coca-Cola?" And Klaus is like, "No, we have Americans. They have passports and stuff. They're not European," or whatever. And he's like, "Coca-Cola."
What?
And let me backtrack. Klaus was wonderful. He was our bus driver, and he dealt with us. And he's actually been our bus driver for multiple trips.
Like he retired from being a bus driver, but then came back to be a bus driver for their 2013 trip.
Fun.
Yeah, so he had a little cooler up front where he kept Coca-Cola and beer, and you could pay him, €5 or whatever, and you could get whatever you wanted whenever. And he kept it really stocked. So he's like, "You want a Coca-Cola?" And the guard's like, "Yeah." So he reached down and handed the guard a Coca-Cola. I guess he opened it because it's not a twist off or whatever. So, and then the guard's like, "Okay, go through."
That's awesome.
That's the
awesome.
easiest border bribe I have ever heard
That's
of.
hilarious. Coca-Cola.
So then we go through.
On the way back, Klaus made sure he was fully stocked up on some Coca-Cola.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then we started driving. It was dead silent for like 30 seconds. And then everyone just started busting out laughing.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
That's
I was
pretty
like,
great.
I have Americans. Coca-Cola? What? Where's the connection? That's funny.
That guard was thirsty.
Yeah.
And now they're part of the EU.
Yeah.
So they don't really, I guess they kind of have a border. But
Well, yeah, and so the EU helps out a lot because when we were traveling from London to Paris, it was before Brexit was a thing. So just because since we were traveling between EU countries, we couldn't just go through the super speedy EU line, but it was a lot easier for us to get through customs because they're like, "Yeah, you're coming from another EU country. We don't necessarily care as much, but you are American, so we do care more than you being actually from England somewhere."
Yeah.
But I think when we got to Paris, we did have to be like, "Yes, we're Americans. We're going here. We're here on holiday, blah, 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 blah." Yeah. And then if you do have a checked bag, whatever you can put in your checked bag as far as like liquids, because you can still typically have your little quart size bag, But the more stuff that's in your checked bag, the less stuff that they're going to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But also be advised of what it is that you're actually putting in your checked bag. If the bottle of liquor has a little symbol of a plane with a red cross through it, be prepared that that might not come home with you, because if they search your bag, they might pitch that. Though we know people who have managed to get those across borders without any issues. It just kind of depends. But typically, you can't bring across any meat, fruit, or veggies. Basically, anything that could potentially contain bacteria or bugs. So, like if you have an apple, you pack an apple in your suitcase because I want to eat this on the train. Eat it on the train. Don't try to take it through customs with you, because they do actually have dogs that are trained to sniff out food, which sounds like a crazy thing because they're dogs, but they do that to make sure that people don't bring across different bugs or reptiles or things that they do not want to potentially become invasive species in their country.
Yep.
And we just recently went to Aruba, and they said that you couldn't bring back any coral, sand, or shells, which is a bummer because there was a lot of pretty coral, sand, and shells. But we couldn't bring any of that back, but you could bring back sea glass made into some jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And you're allowed to bring back as much sea glass as you want because it's just trash. They consider it trash.
They consider it trash.
They consider it trash. I mean, it is trash.
It is, but...
It is trash, but it's pretty whenever you can. I really wanted to get some blue, but I couldn't. Blue is hard to find, so...
I don't know why you would want blue.
I know. You'd think it
It's
was...
a
stupid
mystery.
color.
You'd think it was my favorite color or something.
All right. So do you want to move on to... Did we already do languages?
We kind of talked a little bit about it last
Yeah.
time, I think.
Yeah.
But I thought we were talking about... so moving from country to country, which kind of goes in line with customs, we never drove anywhere. I've heard there's an international driver's license you could potentially get. I don't know what exactly that entails.
So if you are driving anywhere, even if, it's just within a singular country, because we only drove in Ireland, we didn't drive anywhere else.
That was terrifying.
Just do your research ahead of time on if they require an international driver's license. I know Ireland, U.S. driver's license was fine. We didn't need anything else, but make sure that you do some research on what driving's like, what their road signs are.
How to do a roundabout.
How to handle roundabouts, because Ireland and Aruba are very roundabout heavy.
And those roundabouts are pretty different than the U.S.
Well,
ones.
no, they're the same as the U.S. ones. They just know how to use them.
Yes.
And they use them a
U.S.
lot
drivers do not know how to use them, because you're supposed to yield into a roundabout,
Yep.
which means you can technically keep moving as long as you're not going to hit someone. But a lot of Americans just stop.
Yeah.
And it looks like you're going to hit some people, because like when Steven was driving in Aruba, it was like these two cars were converging onto each other. But they'd fine. I mean, they just went right around the circle, but it was like, I'm coming in, they're coming around the circle. And the kind of interesting thing is they said that they're actually safer because you're not going to then like T-bone someone. Like if you do hit somebody, you're only like glancing them. You're always kind of hitting
glancing,
off
and
of,
you're also typically going at a much slower speed too.
which makes total sense
coming
to
at a
me,
normal
because if you do
intersection.
them right, I mean, I could see where that would be a lot safer than a four-way stop, where you might be going through a four-way stop and someone might just not stop and T-bone you. So
Yeah.
We saw a couple of those today.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
No, not T-bones,
No.
but
Like,
just
like
people,
going through the
Accidents.
red light.
Yeah.
people ignoring red lights.
So
Yeah.
scary.
Somebody turned left to clear the intersection. The person behind them, I could see that they were making the decision, am I going to go or am I going to stop? Really, they should have stopped. But they started to turn, and then a car blew through the red light going straight.
Jeez.
Fortunately, they stopped in time, but it was like, seriously, people?
Meanwhile, we had a green light.
Yeah, meanwhile, we had a green light, and I'm just like, I'm just
3 cars going into the intersection.
going to chill for a bit.
I feel like every time I'm riding with you guys, we run into someone that ran the red light. Like I never run into anybody that runs red lights until I'm in the car with you guys.
I have
Yeah.
legitimately
You all
seen
are
a
magnets
semi run a
for
red
that.
light before I
Terrifying.
turn left. And I'm like, I'm just going to sit here for another 10 seconds and then I'll go.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
it's so scary. But anyway.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of roundabouts, though, avoid the Arc de Triomphe
Oh, yeah. The Arc de
that
Triomphe
is
is
one
so
roundabout I don't think I ever want to drive in.
in France.
Our
in
driver
Paris.
drove through it. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is where we are. I'm
Yeah.
just going to stay right here. Because like there are no lines on the road.
Mhm.
It's like 10 roads coming into one. It's like,
Yeah.
No, we saw it when we were
Well, we
went
saw
up.
it when we were up on top of the on the ark.
Yeah, it was scary.
But
I really just feel like
we
didn't-
drove. We were driven through it too, and I was like, okay, this is fun.
We
Yeah.
just did
You
a
must have
ton of
blocked
trains
that.
and walking.
Yep.
I mean, just a ton of trains and walking in Europe, which was so nice.
Yeah, we
Mhm.
for the most part we did too, and then we did 2 bike tours. We did one in London and we did one in Paris. They're called Fat Tire Bicycle Tours.
Oh,
They're great.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor, but they're great because they're run by like people from England and people from the Americas. So they're English speaking tours. They're a lot more laid back. They have some night tours where you like drink a bottle of wine over the course of your whole tour, but they're nice big wheel, big seat, comfy bicycles. You don't have to be super fit to do it, though it does help that you're not so run down by the end of it. It's a good way to see about 10 different points of interest in one day. You don't get to like spend a lot of time at those points of interest, but you learn some more history. And if you only have a short amount of time to spend in a city, it's a good way to like kind of get your bearings as far as where things are. And then you can go off on your own after your tour.
were they electric bikes?
No. They also have tours in the States because we did a bicycle tour in Washington, D.C. as well, which was nice, but I would not recommend because Washington, D.C. was so hilly. So bikes are always nice. Get yourself a Metro pass. Paris does I want to say it's like a 5 or a 7 day pass, but it has different levels. So if you're staying in Paris and you want to go see Versailles and you want to go to Disneyland Paris, you want to make sure that you get, it ends up being like the premium 5 or 7 day bus pass.
Did you guys do
Metro
both those?
pass.
We did
Yes,
both those too.
we did
That
both
was
of them.
worth it.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah, definitely.
if you don't get the full-blown pass, like you can get to Versailles, but you can't get to Disneyland.
Mm.
And then it's like, we got to pay extra.
I mean, if you can't get to Disneyland, are you really on vacation?
Ah.
No, you're not.
Versailles was really nice. I really enjoyed the grounds.
We slept in the grass.
I took a little nap by the by the
fountain.
fountain.
They do a tour inside, and that's just kind of blah. But the
Oh.
outside on the grounds, it's huge.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We got a bike on that
Yeah, we
too.
rented bikes to bike around.
Oh
on the
wow,
ground.
nice.
that would be cool to ride
Yeah.
around.
We got
Versailles.
some fresh squeezed orange juice.
Nice.
Made me feel like a queen.
We got
I
that
mean,
in
I am a
Aruba.
queen,
Mm.
but
Fresh squeezed orange juice is amazing.
Sounds good.
I am.
yeah.
Yeah, you
So-
are.
Check up what kind of different pass options you can get.
Yeah.
Because potentially it can be cheaper to buy like your Oyster card in advance where you can get potentially like a 5-day thing versus a pay as you go.
And beyond just rail, the like metros, with the EU being a thing, there are also larger rail passes that you can get that help with traveling from city to city and country to country, because a lot of their rail systems are part of one infrastructure.
Have a GPS if you need to drive. If you decide to drive yourself, we had some friends that didn't have a GPS and they had to pay a whole bunch of money
Yeah.
because they had to use their GPS because they didn't know where things were and they were trying to drive to the Harry Potter tour.
So they did not get the GPS from the rental car company, and they didn't have international data,
International
Ooh.
data
but
is
they
the
pulled
thing.
up the GPS on their phone and racked up like a multi-$100 bill from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah,
what I'm
that'd
saying. Like,
be
I don't think I would want to drive in Europe because there's just too many better options.
no. And like the crazy thing for me, because England is everybody drives on the quote unquote wrong side of the road because they're all on the left side of the road. And we were on the bus going to the Harry Potter studio tour, and I looked
100%
down.
worth it.
100%
Yeah.
worth it. I looked down because we're on the second layer of a double-decker bus because I was like, oh, sweet, double-decker bus.
That's something we didn't get to do.
American
I didn't get to do.
tourist.
I would have loved to have done that.
But I looked down, and there is someone on the wrong side of their car driving. Like, they're on the left-hand side of the car like we're used to. And I'm like, oh, they, like, brought their car from somewhere else.
Wow.
Like, they managed to, like, ferry or, like, take their car through the tunnel or something.
That's crazy.
And they were just driving like it would be like the equivalent of a U.S. Postal Service car.
Yeah. And that's one thing I will say. The driving in Ireland was weird for me because they were also on the left side of the road like UK. But the fact that the steering wheel was also on the opposite side of the car helped flip my brain to
Yeah.
be like,
Except
oh yeah,
for we
this
drove
is...
into something and get the car
Well.
insurance. Get the insurance.
Get insurance. In Ireland, there are a lot of stone walls hidden by shrubbery
And sheep
and the roads are not super wide in the country, so there's not much room to get over when cars are passing.
So the passenger is terrified the entire
Yeah.
time.
It was fine.
You survived.
Luckily, he had the full coverage. When we got back to the rental place, they were like, "You were missing a hubcap, or we're missing a
It
mirror.
was
missing
like
something."
the
It was-
cover of the mirror had come off or something.
Yeah, it come off.
It had come
Yeah.
off.
Come off.
Yeah, it just
I don't know how that
popped off.
happened.
Who knows? Just a quick side story here. One of my brothers is actually the reason why my mom started traveling internationally and why I now have as much of a love for it as I do. But he was working in Germany for a summer in college. He managed to get a speeding ticket on the Autobahn.
Oh, that's right.
So-
On the Autobahn, which you can go like
Yeah,
hundreds
which
of miles
there's
an hour.
typically not a speed limit on the Autobahn as long as you're just not being an
Th-
idiot.
that's
but
the Germany highway.
Yes.
Yes, German highway. Sorry, I guess I should say that. But he happened to be going through a construction zone, I think it was. And in construction zones, they still have speeding limits. But yeah, he managed, I still think it's hilarious, managed to get a speeding ticket on the
I mean,
Autobahn.
that's a good story, though.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Yeah. Check it off your bucket list.
Yeah.
So you said you rented a car in Ireland.
Yes.
Europeans typically have what I guess I call a stick shift.
Yeah.
I guess you know how to drive a stick shift.
I taught him how to drive a stick shift.
Yes,
Yeah.
my beautiful wife did teach me how to drive a stick shift, but I decided that was one extra thing I did not want to throw on top of being on the wrong side of the road and the wrong side of the car in my American eyes. I did not want to also figure out how to work a stick shift with my left hand when I'm used to working it with my right
Oh,
hand.
boy.
So we did just go for the automatic.
And how
and
difficult was it to get an automatic?
It wasn't very difficult. I don't know if it was just kind of luck of the draw or what, but we just requested it when we got there to pick up the car, and at least in that instance, they didn't have any trouble getting it to us. And I think it might have been slightly more than a stick shift, but it wasn't an insane amount. It was totally worth
But
it.
you definitely had to request.
Yes, it was
request that.
something. Yep, definitely something to make sure you request if you are not wanting to put that extra stressor on. And I don't remember. I know Hillary said we may have talked about it last time too, but working around different cultures with different languages. Google Translate is a very helpful thing. You can usually have, even if you don't have international data, you can have a lot of stuff downloaded directly to your phone to help with translating. It is very helpful, though, to know at least a few phrases and their responses when you go somewhere. And if you happen to be too good at saying those phrases, also know how to say, "That is all I know."
Yeah.
Because if they think that you speak their language fluently, they will just tear into it and you will be very confused.
Yeah.
But know that, in a lot of other countries, English is still a very widely spoken language because most other countries' schooling does a much better job of teaching multiple languages. But they will definitely appreciate you trying to speak their language and will be a lot more open to continuing the conversation in English with you if you show that you're trying.
The only two times I think we ran into issues were on the train with a French couple that didn't understand what we were trying to tell them, so they pinned us in, so I had to jump down from the top bunks while they were asleep because they didn't understand to not put their suitcases up against the ladder. Then you couldn't use the ladder because you couldn't pop it out.
Yeah.
So I jumped down and then had to jump over the man's arm and everything else. So that was exciting. And then the other time is I would recommend, if you're not going with a family that's from India, because we went to India with a family that was from India and we were going to visit their family and see the sights and stuff, go with a tour guide to India, because if you don't know, there's so many different dialects in India that actually half of the family only knew
The dialect in southern India.
and only the dad knew how to get around. When we went to northern India, he was the only one who knew how to get around northern India because they spoke Hindu.
Or
Hindi.
Is it Hindu or Hindi?
Hindu's the religion. Hindi is
right.
the language.
Yeah, he spoke Hindi,
Yep.
but he was the only one in the whole family that spoke it. So it was nice that we had him to advocate for us. And I would recommend, if you're going to India, get a tour guide, because otherwise, like, do it with a tour company, because otherwise they may kind of take advantage of you in that way because you can't communicate as well and those kind of things. So
yeah, pickpocketers are common in high tourist places, but like if you go to maybe some Asian countries or other places, you might have to worry about the wildlife being the ones who pickpocket you. As far as monkeys are pretty smart and can get into stuff.
yeah.
And
that happened to us.
you can't necessarily trust the small children. As an American, we're pretty good about being loud and taking up space, and sometimes that's what you have to do in those situations. Because when we were standing in line for the changing of the guard, we had gotten there early enough that we were right on the gate, so we could see everything. And so we had all of these people that were trying to like send their kids to get up in front of us so they could see, or like try to squeeze around us so they could see better. And it's like, I'm sorry, we got here first. Like, we've been here for the last hour and a half, so we could have this spot. Come back tomorrow if it's really that important to you. Or, hey, yeah, little Johnny, you can look for 5 minutes and then I'm going to have to ask you to move on. Because, yes, you can fit underneath me, but I'm not going to have you up in my space for this long.
And if you're going into the monkey forest and they say not to bring any food, don't think that it's safe deep down in your backpack, because they will unzip everything and get into it like they did with Steven. And you can't shake them off your backpack. They will scream at you. With their very sharp,
exciting.
scary teeth.
That's the same thing that I tell my girls at camp about raccoons.
We didn't even know we had the bar in our bag.
Yeah, I forgot it was
And
in
this
there.
monkey
But
unzipped
that
the
monkey
bag,
knew it was in there.
grabbed the bar out, popped the thing open, grabbed the cookies out of it, and ate it right there. I mean, Steven was standing very still, luckily. Like, but we were trying, my brother-in-law tried to shoo him off the bag, and he screamed at my brother-in-law. He was like, "Ee!"
No.
And we were like, oh, Steven, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I will say, on the topic of currency, a lot of places in Europe, at least when I went, they don't take credit card. Or they don't take certain credit cards, especially.
Yeah, I
Not
know.
Discover.
Amex used to be the biggest one, American Express, but now MasterCard is actually the card that's accepted more places around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might think that we're in a cashless society or we're heading in that direction, but
And Europe is definitely going that way more now too, but certainly be ready to have cash.
a lot of the small shops, like the
yeah.
very small mom and pop shops.
Or
Mhm.
places we went, the credit card machine would be down.
And with the credit cards, I would also recommend ahead of time, make sure you're calling your card companies if you're going to be using it overseas to put a travel notification on, so that you don't go to pay for your hotel room and realize that your card has been declined because your card company thinks it's fraud. So make sure you put travel notifications on your cards, and also check to see if there's any sort of foreign transaction fees, because we always try to make sure we only use cards that do not have that.
Potentially your bank will convert currency for you. For sure, if you know someone who has a AAA membership, if you don't, you can get them to convert currency for you. So you can go with currency in hand on your trip where you don't have to worry about anything. One thing that helped us out as well was we had a couple $100 on us American. When we ran out of pounds, we were able to find a currency conversion station where you're going to end up paying a little bit more, but we were able to just say, here's $30 American or whatever, and then they gave us so many bucks in pounds.
Make sure that you're not doing that at the airport.
No,
'cause
never do that at the
typically
airport.
the ones at the airport have a much higher fee.
This was like
on them.
some bodunk. It seemed like it was super sketch. Like, I think the whole place was the same size as our dining room. And you like walk in and there's 3 little teller stands, and like the door behind you locks because all that they have is cash.
Mhm.
So we gave them so much cash, they gave us so much back.
I swear to you, Steven walked up to what looked like a cardboard box in Bali. I was like, this is where we're going to get cash? It was like an ATM or something. And I
Yeah.
was like,
and
he was
that's
like, that's
another
legit.
option.
And I was like, I'm scared, but if you believe that that's where you're going to get your money from, okay.
Yeah. And ATMs can be another option rather than, taking U.S. cash along, but make sure you are going to obviously reputable ATMs.
It was fine, but it did not look like a reputable place.
Yeah.
Make sure that your PIN number is set up as well.
Yes.
We would have been royally screwed in Scotland because before we converted our US dollars to pounds, we went to an ATM inside of a bank because my credit card says you can take whatever kind of money, like it won't count as a cash advance if it's an international trip. I thought that I don't even know if I thought that I had set up a PIN for that card. Apparently I did, because I attempted to take out cash and the machine ate my card, and my card was the one that had no fees, had the higher limit, and I think like half of our stuff was set up to go through my card.
Oh, man.
The very nice people at the bank actually got into the ATM machine to give me my card back. Otherwise, it would have been very bad.
Yeah.
So
that
don't
could've
try
been.
your PIN for a third time because you think you typed it in wrong the first 2 times. Just take your card back and run away.
One of my tips that I like to tell people is carry tissues or toilet paper in places that mainly use bidets if that's more comfortable for you. So if you're not comfortable using the bidet, which just like public restrooms with like a hose that you can rinse yourself off with, like I wasn't a big fan of that. So it was nice to carry tissues with us, and that was mainly for India and Bali. I felt like that was where it was more of an issue. But I remember in Normandy, I carried tissues too.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to carry you also want to carry a few extra coins because not all restrooms are free.
This is especially true in London and Paris.
Yep. A lot of public
In Germany,
restrooms are not
in
free
Germany
public.
too.
On the toilet talk as well, make sure you know what the water quality is like where you're traveling to know if you can just drink their normal tap water or if you need to be drinking bottled water.
Nobody likes Delhi Belly. I never risked it,
Yep.
even especially in India. I never risked brushing my teeth with the water. My mother-in-law actually gave a good tip. So one of those things, a million things she packed in her bag, other than her one outfit, was a like a colorful scrunchie. And we didn't do this, but like she said that she would put it on the
Puts it
faucet,
on the sink.
faucet, so she would remember like not to use the water to brush her teeth or drink it or whatever. And I was like, that's kind of a good idea. So yeah, totally check the water quality before you go somewhere.
Yeah, and when you go to restaurants, you'll typically be asked, especially in Europe, do you want tap water, bottled water, or still water? It's like, okay, know which one you want.
My mom's favorite phrase when we traveled to Germany was Wasser von Hahn, and she would always do a twisting hand motion because that was water from tap.
Oh, that's funny.
Because their standard was to serve sparkling
Yep.
water, and that was not something that any of
Wasser
us
von
liked at
Hahn?
that time. Wasser von Hahn.
Wasser von Hahn.
See, I know other people where their go-to is they just order the lightest beer on the menu because the lightest beer on the menu is $2 versus the bottle of water is $4 or €4. So
And
Fair.
see, this was also the trip where we went to the Hofbrauhaus in München, and with my parents who neither drink, and the waiter came up and asked what we wanted to drink, and everybody asked for water because we were with my parents, and also I was like 12 at the time, and the
Oh, that's
waiter
nothing.
looked at us and was like, "What? No beer?" And I was like, just kind of sunk into my chair. I was like, "Yeah, we're not allowed to."
You made up for it though when they let you go by yourself.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of our trip to Munich, well, my trip to Europe, we went to Munich, as I said, and I did not get to go to the Hofbrauhaus.
Aw.
That's sad.
Have you been to the Hofbrauhaus around here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to the Newport
Okay.
one, but I haven't.
We have
I
stories.
was in Munich, and
Aw.
I
That's a
did not-
story for another time.
Yeah.
That's your story for another time.
Stephen, Hillary, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation. Thank you, Stephen and Hillary, for coming on the podcast and giving your insight into international travel. As we said previously, there are 2 other episodes where we talk about international travel. That was the 3rd part of that conversation. So make sure you go back and check out the other 2 if you missed them. The links will be included in the show notes.
Look out for the 4th part of this trilogy coming out in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't know. We'll see. 6 seasons in a movie.
We'll have to replace everyone with someone younger.
Oh no. Who's
Steve
gonna
is-
play me?
Stephen can be the old hermit.
I mean, he is the oldest one.
Is he?
Wait.
I'm the oldest, I think.
Oh, yeah, you are. Wait, what are birthdays? What is time? But hey, Joe, you're going to save this all with your dad joke of the week. I know you're going to have a good one this time. I'm going to laugh and it's going to be genuine, right? Right?
Yes. It's a good one.
Okay.
It's kind of Halloween themed, kind of travel themed. So
I mean, fall is probably here by the time this episode drops, so appropriate.
why did the witch stay in a hotel?
I don't know. Why?
They had great broom service.
I mean, maybe you get a chuckle? Does that count?
I'm gonna cut that out and include my chuckle. my audience. Where's my audience?
Well, Editing Joe just put it in, so you're good. Yay, Editing Joe. He's the best. He knows everything. He is the master of this podcast. Now you're going to cut that out and put an echo on it, aren't you?
Well, that does it for this week's show. Thanks so much for listening. We want to hear from you. If you have ideas for a show topic, if you have comments from a previous show, perhaps you liked it or you learned something new. There are many ways to get in touch with us. Send us an email at craftparentingpodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Craft Parenting Podcast to get updates on when episodes have dropped, see pictures of our adorable kids, and more.
If you like what you hear, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. Make sure to share the show with your friends, your family, your neighbor down the street. It's what helps our show grow. You can also send us stuff to our awesome P.O. Box, still accepting pineapples and craft supplies.
All of this information is available on our beautiful website, www.craftparentingpodcast.com, so go check it out.
That's where we post all of the show notes. Plus, I've been writing a lot of blog posts about some of the stuff that doesn't make it into the podcast.
You write a blog post every Tuesday and Saturday.
I make a very hearty attempt to. When I do not, you fill in for me because you are amazing.
And then we drop the podcast on Thursday. So we publish content 3 days a week. So make sure you go check that out. If you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the show. We are listed on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and just about every podcast app out there. And with that, I'm Joe.
And I'm Caroline.
See you next time. Craft Parenting Podcast.
Bye. Maybe some beer-related topics. We can drink some more. Maybe some child-related topics because part of our podcast title is parenting. I don't know. We have to go through the books and see what we want to do next.
Remember that time when you checked out a book at the library and you said you were going to...
Hey, I have not read that book recently, but I have been reading that book. It is currently in the library. It's in my pumping bag. History. I am not recording this way in the past.
I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna add an echo, make it reverb. I'm gonna put it at the end. And I'm just gonna copy and paste it and make it like 10 minutes long.
Whatever floats your boat, dude. So, doo-doo.
I was gonna hold it in.